When I was released from federal prison in 2009 and began working with our team to prepare defendants for sentencing in prison, the government was allocating their resources to so many different types of investigations. It was the Ponzi scheme era of Bernie Madoff. It was the mortgage meltdown with the banks and these liar loans, as they were called, insider trading, and on and on. It was the perfect storm, they said, of white collar crime. Well, over the last few years, the government has been reprioritizing a number of their resources. You're seeing much fewer insider trading cases. You're seeing fewer mortgage cases. And the real focus has been to healthcare fraud and doctors and physicians and marketers. And we're going to talk about that in this video today. A very large investigation the government undertook, who it is, what happened, why. Before we do, thank you very much for watching our videos at Prison Professors. Please like and subscribe and comment if you find value. And if you're on our podcast listening, thank you very much for all of you watching. My name is Justin Paperny, and it is my privilege to help you better understand where the government is prioritizing so much of our taxpayer resources. To that end, recently, make sure I have this set up correctly, make this a little larger for everyone at home. Recently, the government charged 138 people in a massive $1.4 billion healthcare fraud crackdown across the country that included 42 doctors, nurses, and other licensed medical professionals. Many of the schemes are intended to exploit the hardships of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it goes without saying that the majority of people who become immersed in a white-collar crime investigation did not have intentions that they would end up their name versus the United States of America. You'd have to be pretty nuts to be one of the 42 doctors to go to medical school through all of the training, the expense, the time, the lifetime commitment to then say, I want to flush it down the toilet. As we have learned in white-collar crime, bad decisions are subtle. If you have not cultivated the right character or the right habits over a period of time, if you are not fully aware of your tendencies as a human being, a marketer or salesperson who has a different agenda than you can exploit you and take advantage of you. But I know that these physicians, medical professionals, and nurses do not have intentions to someday end up in federal prison. Yet here we are. Here we are. Let's talk about exactly what has happened here. This scheme spans 31 federal districts across the country and involves more than $1.4 billion in losses, most of which are related to telemedicine fraud. Because telemedicine fraud, telemedicine in general, has been a huge boom over the last couple of years due to COVID, where people are able to see doctors online rather than actually visiting an office. The reason the losses are so big for all of you defendants or looking to learn more about white-collar crime, that's why you're watching this video, the losses are relative because it influences the sentencing guidelines. The larger the amount, the higher the guidelines are going to be. Potentially, the much longer prison term is going to follow. The sentencing guidelines are crucial. You have to understand them as you're advancing towards sentencing. Through a coordinated effort involving multiple agencies, the government announced these charges against the doctors and healthcare professionals. Several schemes are included in its most recent enforcement actions, such as telemedicine and pandemic release fraud. I will not go through all of the Department of Justice press releases, but I can pretty much guarantee you that of the 42 doctors, nurses, and professionals, if all of them didn't have their own release, they are all bunched together. And the government does that, of course, for a deterrence factor. They want a doctor in New York to read about a doctor in Illinois indicted for healthcare fraud. They want everyone to know the consequences that follows. And if you've broken the law, my phone is blowing up here. Forgive me, I didn't put it on silence. I will. They want everyone to know what happens when you cheat. There is not a whole lot of evidence that the deterrence factor works. In other words, that this doctor in New York will now not commit fraud, if that makes sense, because he read about a press release in Illinois. That said, the government issues these press releases for deterrence, but also to let the taxpayers know they're doing their job. And of course, it helps advance their agenda as prosecutors. Never forget who the stakeholders are, what they're after, what they want. They want justice, but they also want to advance their career, and they're going to leverage off these press releases. Continuing on, Cantrell from the Health and Human Services said, we have seen all too often criminals who engage in healthcare fraud, stealing from taxpayers while jeopardizing the health of Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. Today's announcement should serve as another warning to individuals who may be considering engaging in such illicit activity. Our agency and its law enforcement partners remain unrelenting. They're going to say all the things you expect them to say. They're going to pat themselves on the back, and if they have done a good job, they're going to let you know. And we hope if people have broken the law, they're held accountable and they work towards reconciliation of giving back. Indeed, our team at Prison Professors, and you should go to prisonprofessors.com to digest our free resources. Our team works under the presumption that we can all become better than bad decisions we've made, not by happy talk, but by creating, by understanding how we got here, why we got here, what we've learned from this, and how we'll do better. So if these physicians and healthcare professionals and nurses did indeed break the law, it starts with saying, I'm sorry, and creating a realistic, measurable plan to give back. The DOJ's healthcare unit is clearly sending a message in an attempt to deter would-be offenders from participating in these schemes. Part of the reason they issue these press releases, part of the reason we're bringing attention to it. Over the last few months, there have been huge investigations and losses attributed to healthcare fraud, including 1.1 in telemedicine fraud, 29 million in pandemic relief fraud, 133 million in substance abuse treatment facilities known as sober homes, 160 million connected to illegal opioid distribution schemes. So our team at Prison Professors, we have worked with dozens of physicians, over hundreds over the years by now. And of late, the majority of them are involved around this illegal opioid distribution scheme, as they want to call it. Not as much the telemedicine fraud or even the pandemic relief fraud, that we've had a number of COVID-related cases. It's really been the illegal opioid distribution, which can be detrimental at a sentencing hearing, both because of the loss, but also if there's someone that has passed away as a result of illegally writing a prescription or prescribing something because you're getting a kickback and getting paid. Indeed, there have been a number of doctors who have gotten longer sentences because victims speak at sentencing. In some cases, some of these physicians have essentially been told, "You're responsible for my family member's death. You prescribed fentanyl that you should not have," and I attribute their loss or their death to you. That happened with a very big case out of Boston, the Instance Pharmaceutical case. The majority of the people went to trial. Some did not. Some pled guilty and cooperated. But there were people who told Judge Burroughs, I'm still an addict, or we lost a loved one because of these people. Well, certainly a judge is going to factor that into the sentencing hearing. It's not normal, like a white collar crime, so to speak, where someone may have lost money on an insider trade or made money on an insider trade or defrauded Bank of America or Goldman Sachs. All wrong. It's different. It moves to a different level. I said that twice, but you get it. When people are dying or suffering, plus physicians are held to such a higher standard with that license, they're going to get punished even more than a lawyer would who has a law degree. Criminal schemes in the healthcare space continue to be at the top of the government's enforcement priorities. I mentioned that when we opened. I'm seeing tons of healthcare fraud investigations. For their part, criminal organizations remain undeterred, continuing to challenge law enforcement's fraud detection capabilities and fraud prevention controls, regardless of the consequences that some people face and the desire to grow and to make more money and acquire more possessions. People are going to continue to break the law, irrespective of the consequences or getting caught. Some will get caught, some will not. I'm of the opinion if you do it long enough, eventually you're going down. That is our experience. You make bad decisions long enough, eventually it's going to come back to get you. To the telehealth fraud case, 43 people received telemedicine healthcare fraud charges. Specifically, the government alleges they submitted false and fraudulent claims involving more than $1.1 billion. According to the DOJ, some of the accused paid doctors and nurses to order unnecessary durable medical equipment, genetic testing, other diagnostic testing, and pain medications without as much as interacting with the patients. Forgive me. In some cases, the doctors only had very brief communication with their alleged patients, whom they never treated before. Most of the interactions were on the phone, an atypical situation before the pandemic. I know a lot of these doctors rationalized that they believed they were doing the right thing and ordering tests that they thought were necessary. And in the end, without seeing the patient and really doing their due diligence with their medical license on the line, they made a mistake, and the numbers add up. And then you rationalize in time that maybe these people do need the mistake, and the money that I'm getting is good, and it's a win-win for everyone, without considering the cost of the investigation, the loss of taxpayer resources, which is frankly insignificant given how much the money spends, but still they're going to hold you accountable. It's still fraud. After doctors and nurses place their orders, durable medical equipment companies, tests, and pharmacies then purchase these orders in exchange for illegal kickbacks and bribes. In total, the people accused in this telehealth fraud scheme requested more than $1.1 billion in false and fraudulent claims, reimbursement claims from Medicare. As is often the case, the government alleges the participants participated in the fraud scheme, spent the proceeds on items, yachts, vehicles, real estate. It's just really dumb stuff, right? It's the idea of not having enough, wanting more, rationalizing. As some people say, the government is the biggest crook of all, the way they waste our money. So what's the big deal if we do this? We're never going to get caught. It's so small relative to how much they're actually spending or the actual waste that exists in time. You just convince yourself. So while they didn't go to medical school with intentions to defraud, in time you convince yourself through these subtle, just poor habits that are built over a number of years. It's the habits that drive these decisions, the habit to spend more, the habit to have a bigger home, to impress people. It's the habits they've cultivated. And as we know, habits are hard to break. I'm on my 4th cup of coffee this morning, and I told myself January 1st I would have 2 cups a day. That's why I'm not a huge New Year's resolution guy, but I've already failed. I have had a habit for many years of having at least 4 cups of coffee a day, and I'm slightly dizzy because I'm on my 4th cup of coffee a day. The point is, they had built poor habits over a period of time of acquiring and wanting more, and now they will come to value new things because they're not going to value the homes and yachts anymore because the government took them. So through this experience, they're going to come to value different things, as I learned in federal prison. These charges are part of a more significant trend in healthcare enforcement. Recently, the DOJ brought charges in a handful of high-profile telehealth cases, including one involving a lab owner who pled guilty for his role in a $73 million scheme. February, a Florida woman paid $20 million after using telemedicine to shield what the DOJ described as one of the largest healthcare fraud schemes in history. I could go on and on here. I won't. I'm going to put the whole blog up in the YouTube description, and I encourage you to read it at Prison Professors. Let me close with our conclusion here, because whether it's healthcare fraud, opioid, sober home fraud cases, it's rampant all over the country, and the punishment is going to be more severe. It's not just the doctors and the patients, it's everyone who may be involved in these facilities. There are people who are assistants, who are simply employees of these facilities, who learn about this and they turn the other way, or they participate in the kickbacks, or they convince themselves my salary is on the line and I don't want to lose my job. But if they're benefiting and they know, a number of these people are getting held accountable. Indeed, we have a husband and wife client. The husband's a physician back east. The wife worked there for just a short period of time, but she signed some of the paperwork. Unbeknownst to her, she was signing things that might have been wrong. And what happens when the loss comes out? They're going to indict them both. She's on there. She can't claim she didn't know. She signed it, though I can tell you she didn't know what she was signing. The husband just said, sign it. We're running a business here. Okay, sure, I'll do it. Both of them are indicted. The goal is to keep her out of prison. He's going to be going away for a while. So to conclude, healthcare remains a crucial law enforcement policy for the Department of Justice. All personnel in the medical industry must remain aware of the ongoing DOJ crackdown in its industry. It's the reason. Law offices, forgive that, doctors' offices, there should be real compliance training. There should be a real understanding of the consequences that follow. There should be a real understanding of how government investigations begin, the extent that the government is going to pursue them at all costs, both for justice and also to advance their career. Of all the things we have seen in the last 13 years, I have never seen such a focus on healthcare fraud and the lengthy sentences that are being handed out to these doctors who violated their oath to put patients first. Thank you for watching this video blog. Please subscribe if you find value, and our team looks forward to returning soon with more helpful content. Bye-bye.